Hey, good morning. Welcome back to the Tow Piglet YouTube channel. My name is Alex, and this is the video you've all been waiting for. Lease review. Alright, so this video has essentially two parts. The first part, I'm going to be comparing buying versus leasing, like price-wise, what the breakdown is. And the second part, I'm actually going to be giving my opinions, or I'll be doing a lease review, right? I'll be reviewing the Enterprise Lease, the program, not the truck, because the program is the same no matter which truck you get. Before we jump right into it, I want to clarify some terms. First and foremost, though, just really quick, guys, on the website, in the description down below, if you go to towpiglet.com/FAQ, over there on the website, you can find yourself a checklist of everything you need to Hotshot. It's free. I just took everything I did in my video. In an older video, I had a three-part series that was everything you need to Hotshot. I just literally took everything from those older videos and made it all in one spreadsheet so that you could just check mark each individual thing that you need. So that's available on the website, towpiglet.com/FAQ. So go check it out. It is free. So let's clarify some terms just to make sure that we're all on the same page. First thing is the Enterprise Lease is nothing, or has nothing to do with at all with the leasing under someone's MC or DOT number. So to haul freight across state lines and to get paid for it, you need a motor carrier number. The federal government assigns that motor carrier number. Now, you can either get your own motor carrier number or you can lease under someone. That has nothing to do with the Enterprise Lease program. That is, you're essentially agreeing that you'll use somebody else's motor carrier number and they'll cover your insurance. That's leasing under someone's motor carrier. This is the lease program from Enterprise Truck Rental, or from Enterprise Commercial Truck, I guess. But so it's two totally separate things. Moving on to the next couple terms, right? This isn't actually a lease, right? So every time I say lease, guys, remind yourself that this is a mileage-based long-term rental program, and the mileage that it's based off of is 60,000 miles. So when you rent the truck, it's for 60,000 miles. You can do that all in 3 months, or all in, you have up to a year. So it's a 60,000 mile truck rental program that you have up to a year to complete. Lastly, guys, the term I want to clarify is buy. Now, granted, most people cannot afford a brand new $50,000 truck, so they finance instead. So when I say buy, remember that I'm actually talking about finance. So in reality, the first part of this video, I will be comparing the Enterprise long-term rental versus financing a brand new truck. That's the comparison in this video. I realize it's shorter and sweeter to say lease versus buy, so keep that in mind when I'm using those terms interchangeably, okay? All right, now let's get into how much my first truck, Clifford the Big Red truck, how much that thing cost me, right? And so I'm gonna look down at my notes right here, but I did 68,958.9 miles. Now, that's totally fine if we round up, and we'll just call it 69,000 miles. So the price of the lease is 22 cents a mile. I've mentioned it in several videos. You've probably seen it, but it's 22 cents a mile. That is the price for the Enterprise long-term rental, and it's 22 cents a mile on all miles. Now, I want you guys to understand that I'm not sponsored by Enterprise. I'm not getting anything from them. I am paying the same rate that you will pay, which is the 22 cents a mile. So now let's do the math. 69,000 miles, which is we rounded up a little bit, multiplied by the 22 cents a mile that I pay. That means for that truck, for Clifford the Big Red truck, the time that I had it, which I think was like 4.5 months or so, almost 5 months, I paid a whopping $15,180. Now, don't forget that I did have the damage, and so I did have to do the deductible on the insurance, and so the deductible was $1,000 for the insurance, and so it's technically $15,180 plus the deductible for the insurance, which that would be my total cost, which that's $16,180. Okay, so the really quick breakdown of how much it would probably cost to buy a new truck or to finance a new truck. So I like I said, 69,000 miles, 22 cents a mile. That's $15,180 that I total spent, and then I did have the damage for the $1,000 insurance dollar deductible. Now moving over here to finance, we can see that if you're gonna buy a truck, right, you're gonna finance it, you're going to have to do an oil change and fuel filter probably every 10,000 miles, and that puts you at around $350. I think is the average cost for an oil change and fuel filter for a shop to do it, right? So that puts you right around $2,100, and you'd be due for a seventh one because we're now at 69,000 miles, right? So that's you'd be on your seventh one, so it's a little more than that. Now let's talk truck payments. Generally, guys, the truck payment is $1,000 or $1,100 or $1,200 a month. That's how much they are. These trucks are not cheap, and so when you finance them, when you count that there's interest in it, your monthly payment will be around $1,200 a month. That puts you, for the 5 months that I had it, that puts you at 6,000 miles. Now keep in mind, this will change dramatically if you don't do as many miles as I did. If you slow down and do 8,000 miles a month instead of like me, where I was averaging over 10, then what this means is your payments would be much higher. And so the more miles you do in a month, the better it kind of is, but not really. You know what I mean? So it's definitely interesting. So that's the truck payment, $6,000. So 5 truck payments, right? Because I had it for 5 months. I did have to put a set of tires on it. So I think a set of tires, that's around $1,500 for all 6 tires because it is a dually. And so that puts us right now with the tires, with the monthly payments, and with the oil change and fuel filters. That's the basic bare minimum maintenance. That puts us at $9,600. You could basically call it $10,000. We're not counting the down payment, right? Because you're going to have to put a down payment on this truck. Sometimes people put $2,000, sometimes people put $5,000. Depending on what your down payment is, that will affect your payment a little bit, but not much. So it's important that you understand that this doesn't include, we're at $9,600, almost $10,000 without a down payment. Now, because that truck is at 69,000 miles, think about this. A crankcase ventilation filter is recommended. That's the filter itself, just the parts, are $120. I've done them multiple times because I had my truck that got up to 500,000 miles. Crankcase ventilation filter. Now, if you don't want to do that, you don't want to take off the plastic cover that's on the top, if you don't want to even bother, that's going to be more than $100 because the shop is going to charge you 1 hour labor for that. Okay, what about an alignment? Sure, you could have gotten an alignment when you got the new tires, but still, that truck wore out the tires really quickly. What about a tire rotation? What about EGR problems? Goodness gracious, guys, more than one person I've talked to, right? Several people, and it seems like Ram is getting sued for this. They're having EGR problems that then permanently locks out the ECM, the engine control module. That's a very, very serious problem. Your truck is in the shop for hours on end, for days on end sometimes. So I mean, again, granted, you are paying more. Guys, the rental isn't cheaper for the first 6 months. The rental is not cheaper for the first 60,000 miles. It's more expensive. All right, guys, sorry I switched up the scenery on you. It was almost 8 o'clock and that Goodyear was like starting to open, goodness, and the employees were pulling in. So I definitely couldn't remain at that parking lot any longer because I was blocking their exit. So I had to move, but then I had to go do all these deliveries. So I'm joining you guys right now. I'm in California. I'm in San Diego, and actually I'm at the Silver Strand State Beach. That's where I am. That's the Pacific Ocean right behind me. But let's continue this video about the buying versus leasing. Now, the number one mistake that most people make when comparing the price of the long-term rental from Enterprise versus the finance truck, the number one mistake is they compared the first 60,000 miles. And that is not an apples to apples comparison. Unless your plan is to quit, unless you want to go finance a brand new truck and your plan is to quit once you hit 60,000 miles, that is not how you compare the two. The proper way to compare is you have to consider the entire life of ownership of that truck. So more than likely, when you're financing a brand new $50,000 Ram or Ford, when you're financing that thing, you're more than likely going to keep it for 3 years, more than likely. And so if you consider that you're probably going to do 100,000 miles a year, you're looking at 300,000 miles. And this is where the Enterprise long-term rental really starts to shine. So I want to make this abundantly clear that the Enterprise rental is not cheaper in your first 60,000 miles. It's actually more expensive than buying a truck and just driving it. However, because we rack on so many miles, because more than likely you're going to use your truck so much, your new truck won't be new very, very long. So even though your first 6 months of ownership when you finance a brand new truck, you're probably going to do only oil change and fuel filters, and maybe after 3 or 4 months of that, you'll probably do a set of tires. That's about it. When you start hitting the 70, 80, 90, 100,000 mile mark, you're gonna run into transmission, fluid, and filter, differentials. You're gonna run into transfer case issues. You're gonna run into tires consistently, alignment. You might have to do shocks. You might have to do brakes, pads, and rotors. But all of that stuff only hits at around 100,000 miles. And so when you're watching YouTube channels that are brand new and they just went out and bought a truck, understand that their content will be nice and fluffy for the first 6 to 8 months. But inevitably, all of that stuff will start piling on. And that's not to even mention that the truck, when it just starts climbing in miles, 150, 200,000 miles, you're now looking at, ball joints, serious suspension stuff, maybe transmission rebuilds, maybe differential rebuilds. Also consider that like the rear seals on this truck, for some reason, they just go very, very often. That rear axle is under a lot of weight, so you will be doing rear axle seals a lot. And so, consider this can kind of be summed up in a graph, and I'm gonna put it on the screen. I think the graph is very, very simple. For the enterprise rental, it's 22 cents a mile flat. Think about a line graph, right? It's just flat. 22 cents a mile, no matter how many miles you want to do. Every 60K, they'll switch you out for a new truck. So that is a flat line. And as for financing a new truck, I think it's like a little squiggly line. And at the beginning, it's a little bit lower than the 22 cent line, as you can see. However, right around that 100,000, maybe 150,000 mile, depending on what kind of truck you get, right around that, it starts to spike up above 22 cents a mile, and then it drops back down because the truck goes back and running, but then it spikes up again, and then it spikes up again, and so on. And those spikes inevitably get closer and closer and closer, and that then means that your truck is consistently costing you 25, 30, 40 cents a mile to run it, because for certain, anytime you pull your truck out, it will break down on the road and it will cost you a ton of out of pocket. And my truck, my silver truck, Tow Piglet 1.0, the truck that I call Josephine, that truck broke down every month for $4,000 repair. Consistently, guys, I kid you not, the last 6 months of ownership, it was every month. And you guys don't understand, when the truck breaks down that often, what that does to your revenue. Let me tell you, the revenue plummets aggressively. And that's another issue of financing or owning a truck, that when you're breaking down, at the end of the day, your revenue suffers. And if the enterprise rental can help me maintain my revenue, right, close to $4,000, $5,000 a week, I want to consistently do those numbers. If it can help me do that, it's well worth it. Not to mention, it'll be saving money for me in the long term. And so that's why, guys, if you are gonna do the enterprise rental, are you gonna be ripped off? Sure, you will be ripped off in your first 60,000 miles. However, the important part is to do the rental again and again and again and again, because that's the important part. You just got to keep doing it, because that's really where it starts to make a difference. So that's crunching the numbers. We can see that it's obvious that the truck will get more expensive over time, and so that's why the enterprise rental makes sense the longer you do it. And as for areas where the enterprise rental shines but aren't really that easy to quantitate, or they're very easy to count up, I guess, think about, there's 3 areas really. No, scratch that, 4 areas, okay? And the 4 areas where enterprise rental really shines is, number 1, modifications. Unfortunately, because the truck is not yours, you cannot modify it. When I had 280,000 miles, guys, on my truck, I was like, oh, I probably need new injectors, and so I'll get 30 horsepower injectors. Oh, I might as well do a turbo because the actuator usually fails at 300,000 miles, so I'll do a bigger turbo. I'll do a milled out one, 67 millimeters instead of 62. And those things just enter your mind. And that's bigger stuff down the road. What about when you first buy your truck brand new? You're gonna be like, oh, I probably want window tint, duh. I probably want all these nicer mud flaps or or trim pieces or bumper color match bumpers. Simply put, you want to customize and personalize your truck, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. However, in a business, in a commercial vehicle, there is. Guys, this thing is supposed to make you money, and that's it. So that's the first thing, right? The enterprise rental forces you to not modify your truck. The second thing, guys, is credit. Guys, there is no credit check for this enterprise rental. So imagine what getting a $50,000 loan for you, how that affects you. Imagine your debt to income ratio. You're now self-employed. You're not a W-2 employee. So that's a problem. And now on top of that, you have this gigantic payment of, maybe $900 or $1,000 or $1,300 on your name, right? Because no one's gonna give you a truck in a business name, right? They're gonna run your credit for it. And so that affects your credit heavily. And so if moving forward, when you wanna maybe do a house or an investment or a flip property, you can't do that. The enterprise rental frees you from that. They don't do a credit check. They don't even do a credit report, right? This is a business long-term rental. And so at the end of the day, even if even if it doesn't work out, Hotshot trucking is a failure, and you turn your truck in, it doesn't go back on your credit. And I really think it's a small premium to pay, right? Because initially you are paying a premium, but it is a small premium to pay to get that kind of guarantee that your credit will be fine no matter what risk you take in this business. The third thing on the list is insurance, right? This is one of those benefits that, it's hard in insurance game to understand exactly what you need. So when you finance a new truck, you obviously need full coverage or comprehensive insurance, right? You obviously need that. The problem is, does that full coverage comprehensive insurance, does that come from your commercial policy or does that come from your personal policy? I don't know. I'm not sure. I would probably say it has to come from your commercial policy, because your personal policy, as soon as you tell them, hey, I'm using it for work and I travel interstate, they transfer you to the commercial department immediately. Now, what that means for your insurance premiums is, because now if you get into an accident, someone, if it's your fault, they can sue you technically for $1 million liability, because that's how much you're supposed to have. The insurance premium is really way more expensive. With the enterprise long-term rental, I just get their insurance because enterprise is self-insured, right? And so you pay them the $225 a month, and you never have to worry about claiming on your policy and ruining your driving record. I think for you guys, it's really hard to understand, if you're looking into this, how important it is to keep your motor vehicle report and your accident record clean. It's crucial. And the fourth and final thing, guys, is emissions. At the end of the day, these trucks do have emissions, and it's getting harder and harder and more challenging to modify the trucks, if you know what I mean. And so that's why you got to keep your emissions in place more than likely. And what that means is you're consistently going to be having emissions problems. And because I turn the truck in every 60,000 miles, it's very rare that quickly I should have emissions issues. And that's why I'm not worried about idling the truck, because at the end of the day, hey, it's a rental, I'm supposed to idle, I'm sleeping in it. How am I supposed to stay cool or warm, right? Depending on where I am. So that's why I don't really worry about those things, because I'm not responsible for them at 100,000 miles, at 200,000 miles, because I turn it in by then. So that's the 4 areas that come to mind right now that are absolutely beneficial in the favor of the enterprise long-term rental. However, more than likely, you're probably thinking, Alex, that sounds too good to be true. The enterprise rental can't be for everyone. And you'd be correct. It's not for everyone. And there are a couple of people that I think the enterprise rental shouldn't be for them. And you should more than likely go out and buy a new or used truck. Those 3 people are, or consist of, you're rich. Okay, maybe you're not rich, but you can afford to pay cash for your truck. Now, that might mean you may buy you a used truck or a new truck, it doesn't matter. But if you have the cash and your truck is paid off, the enterprise rental might not be for you. The second person is, you're a mechanic. Guys, if you know how to do your own truck maintenance, and not only you know how to, but you also want to. If you want to and know how to do your own truck maintenance, the enterprise rental might not be for you. And the third and final person is, you want to do less than 5,000 miles a month. I'm not quite sure how you're gonna be profitable with that little amount of miles. However, there are people out there that don't do 5,000 miles a month, and so I can understand how you wanna buy this truck and you want to take it real slow, maybe 1,000 miles a week, that would only give you 4,000 miles, right? I mean, there are people out there that want that, and so the enterprise rental is not for you either. So unless you are one of those three people, or maybe you're a combination of those three people, guys, understand, you're brand new, you want to focus on learning how to dispatch, you want to focus on how to load securement, you want to focus on making sure how to quickly work with brokers, how to talk on the phone. There's so many other things you could be doing other than worrying about your truck. Oh, did that service guy screw up my truck? Oh, did that person break this? Did this person do that correctly? Did they grease my Zerks? Or like, there's so many things on this truck that you always have to worry about, and to be able to relinquish all of that is truly amazing. So guys, in closing, I want to hear from you in the comments down below. What do you think about the enterprise long-term rental compared to a brand new finance truck? I look forward to reading your comments, and I know I didn't do a super specific detailed breakdown, but generally speaking, I think I covered my bases well. If I missed anything, feel free to comment that down below as well, and I will see you in the next video. Peace. By the way, guys, the joke at the beginning where I said lease review and I clapped, that's from PewDiePie. He's the largest individual creator on YouTube with over 100 million subscribers. And he does a series called Meme Review where he claps. And so that's a joke, but most, if not all of you, probably didn't understand it or didn't get it, because at the end of the day, the Venn diagram between the people that watch me and the people that watch PewDiePie is probably very small, if non-existent. So if that joke went over your head, I'm sorry, man. But yeah, PewDiePie does a really funny thing where he does meme review, and so that's why I did lease review. But anyways, that's that joke.